opinion, what percentage of women would qualify then as regards having these qualities, that is, being able to ask for money, as you suggested? And could they be developed? And if so, what are your ideas about how this could happen?
Well, I mean, I think going back to the asking for money and then not getting it and kind of failing and that experience of failure. I know personally for me, part of the reason I think that I'm so comfortable being an entrepreneur and living kind of this lifestyle, which is often poor and often unsure and often you just kind of assume it's going to work out somehow in the end. And that, for me, that was, and I got it in sports and playing sport in a way, playing pickup, right? Playing in a way that like you're going to lose and you're going to win and you're going to succeed and you're going to fail. And sometimes you're not going to be picked for the team that you want, but you know, you can always, and so that's where I found it personally. And so, but it started at a very, very young age, right? My willingness to take a risk and to like ski down a run that I may or may not know if I can get to the bottom of and just go for it.
Okay.
And I play a lot of kind of extreme sports for myself. That started very, very young, kind of doing extreme things, right? Chasing my brother and, you know, hoping that I didn't get anywhere I shouldn't end up being. But I think that you can also achieve that in a lot of other places in life. But it's that starting from a very, very young age, taking risks and realizing that when you take a risk, it'll probably just work itself out. And having that kind of like gut instinct, I think, is what's core to an entrepreneur. And then when it comes to sourcing venture, you know, the risk is asking for money and having them say no. But at the end of the day, like having them say no is the worst thing that can happen. And so I think having that understanding and that being comfortable with that understanding is just, you know, you can start it at a young age just by getting comfortable with risk and getting comfortable with failure and knowing that there'll be more opportunities, there'll be more places. But it's hard. I mean, even as someone that's comfortable with it, it's still hard.
Do you think that the challenges that women entrepreneurs or startups have historically faced mean that we will always be underrepresented sourcing venture?
Absolutely not.
Great.
I think especially with, you know, kind of, I mean, computers in particular, and technology is kind of the one that everyone looks at. I got on a computer when I was very, very young. Very, very lucky. Was always one of the first kids in my class and neighborhood to be on a computer. My father recognized it, and then interestingly, my mother made all the money growing up, so I had a stay-at-home dad. And so my mom was the breadwinner of the family. Well, my dad was the one that was into technology, so mom bought the computers and dad got the computers.
And helped you then.
Yeah, and so I grew up from the time that I was like 10 on Instant Messenger, and that was really early, you know. We'd go on BBSs, which is the dial-up, you have to dial up to a single machine. And Zach and I would rollerblade down to the local college and get the newspaper and come back with the phone numbers because we wanted to play Risk. Right? We wanted to dial up and play Risk. But it was like, you know, that early, like before the internet. This was like BB, you know. Yeah. And so we were very lucky because we became very comfortable with what the internet is, the capabilities of the internet. You know, when we started our nonprofit in college together, it was about the internet, whereas everyone was like just starting to use email, just starting to have computers. We were very comfortable. But young people today, I mean, they all are on iPhones and iPads and instant message. I mean, it's more about like their parents are like trying to shield them from the mass versus getting them access to what it is. And I mean, I think that you start to see these young entrepreneurs in general and young women, I mean, men and women, that ModCloth, I think is a great example. This company was started by a young woman who was 17. She liked to shop at vintage thrift stores, but also like loved the internet. And now they just did $100 million in revenue. Fantastic. Started by a 17-year-old woman who thinks she's 25 or 26 now, maybe not even that.
What great.
You know, and so it's like, I think that like that coming up, what you're going to see is the kids are going to start doing it as their kids, and they're, you know, 15, 16, 17, and suddenly it's more about the success they're achieving than it is about, is this a man or woman or a boy or a girl.
And when we were talking earlier, even between yours and my generation, we were noting how different it is for women. So yeah, it does certainly sound very hopeful. Thanks for that. How do you feel about incubators, and do you think that this is a way that more women could achieve funding?
I am wary of incubators in general from a raw entrepreneur standpoint. I think Y Combinator is a good example, and you know, they take a lot of the company, and they give you a structure. This is how you start a company, and this is how you do things. But really, some of the greatest companies of all time are built in rebellion towards what is supposed to be the way. It's more about, you know, really bright people, looking historically at what works and doesn't work, and reading lots of books and, you know, blogs and websites and everything you can find on being an entrepreneur, but really kind of figuring out how to do it. And an incubator, tells you like how to do it, and it kind of keeps a lot of ideas out. But it does provide a safe, structured place to learn how to start something or to build something. So, for a certain type of person, that's a great environment. It's protected. You don't have all these outside people telling you that your idea is stupid and that you shouldn't be doing that and that you're wasting your time. And then, and so it's been very successful for a lot of young men, especially young engineers, young technical engineers that maybe aren't as business savvy or as excited about the business perspective. And in that way, it could probably be just as successful for young women that are engineers. But I personally am not a fan of the incubator.
Okay. Do you have any tips for women who are currently sourcing venture?
Perseverance and be fair to yourself. I think that often, when we have sourced venture in the past, and we got rejected, we really, one thing that I think we did pretty well, not always perfectly well, was if every VC is saying, we don't think your idea has legs, maybe take a step back from the drawing board and try to figure out why they're saying that, and then see if you can spend a few months correcting the problems that they see, and then go back, right? Instead of just saying, they don't get it, they don't understand, why aren't they giving us money? And actually, we got really lucky that we, spent the first kind of 4 years with angel. Go talk to angel investors. Instead of thinking, maybe the reason you're not getting VC money isn't because you're a woman, it's simply because there's something missing. And we had that something missing for a very long time when we tried to source venture money. We had a board, had a lot of partner meetings early on with some of our products, and we just never quite turned the corner. And we were very lucky that VCs said, we encourage you guys to take on a little more angel, see how much further you can get and come back, and then we were able to get to the point where we could raise around.
Great. So what you're saying is, don't be stopped by it, but and don't get paralysed by it, but really just start looking creatively at what could be changed.
Right. And don't think that they're saying no because you're a woman, or don't think they're saying no because you're too young, or because or
you're too old.
It likely has to do with the fact that there's something missing, and if you can figure out what that thing that's missing is, and you can fix it, then suddenly, be it adding a better revenue stream, a better growth model, whatever that thing is. I think VCs that I've seen even over the last 5 years have just gotten more and more sophisticated, right? They want to see a company that can scale, and now they know what a company can scale looks like. So now if you go in, you've got this great idea. That's we built one of our first products was this amazing technology, won a bunch of awards. Everyone thought it was the coolest thing. It let you drag and drop pictures, and we wanted to drag and drop advertisements onto a website. But at the end of the day, the technology was profoundly complicated, and so if we were going to scale it up to the user base size, it was going to require a tremendous amount of serving and all of these complications. And a VC said, yeah, this is an amazing product. You guys have clearly got something, but you're missing the whole how are you going to scale it component. And so we had to step back and say, can we scale this product? And we actually found we couldn't. We found it was an unscalable product. And so then we switched to kind of keep pounding for a new business model.
So I'm getting that extra message now that it's really important to listen when you do make these meetings with VCs and angels, and start actually taking some of that feedback on board.
Yeah, and don't be offended if someone says no. There's a lot of reasons why people say no, and your goal is to make them regret it.
Yeah, very good. Yeah. Revenge is the best form of
success. You look at all those people that passed on Google and Yahoo and Facebook, and they're just kicking themselves.
Yeah. Would you like to see changes in the venture capital community that could support women startups? And if so, what are your ideas?
I think that, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of VCs would love to have more women-founded, run startups in their portfolio simply because it looks great for them. I think one thing that I've tried to get kind of involved in some of the different women events and go pitch to a VC, and they always feel very entry level. They always feel very basic, like I already kind of know everything that I'm learning at this event, like I'm not going to really waste my time going to this. But and those same events exist for both men and women in lots of different ways. But I think that the one thing that's missing is, that those events are great, have an idea, bring your idea, but what about people that are actually starting their companies? And there really aren't that many good female mentors. You don't see that many mentors that you can actually say, okay, look, I'm a female entrepreneur, I'm moving forward. Now let's talk about not how to raise money, but how to scale a company. And that's, I think it's just missing, is that next level of it's always
mentorship.
It's so cliche almost. The mentorship. And I know as now I've been doing this for 5 years, I definitely have had many conversations with all my, friends that want to start companies about how they can start companies, and so really it's just doing it. You just
so what you're saying is that there really needs to be more mentorship of women mentoring women,
or men mentoring women, or men mentoring young entrepreneurs. Though I feel that often the problem with being I would say that as a young female entrepreneur, sometimes it is uncomfortable for older men to feel like they can comfortably mentor young women. There's just an awkwardness going on, and I think it's both a generational thing
and the gender
thing.
Okay.
Whereas a younger man, it's a very simple relationship, right?
Yes.
I think it's a generational thing as much as it's a gender thing.
Very interesting.
But it definitely can be awkward. Whereas like someone who's in their 30s or early 40s, I don't feel any sort of gender.
You're a non-technical co-founder. I'm interested in that because I also was that. Do you believe that it's easier for technical women founders to achieve venture funding than non-technical? And if so, what are your reasons for this?
I think, kind of as we discussed earlier as well, having a very, very strong technical person on board, and ideally a founder, simply because then they have more vested. For instance, our founder has a tremendous amount of stock in this company. We end up giving him a very, very much a co-founder share of ownership. Yeah. And so now he's very interested in making sure this company succeeds or fails. Yeah. So having someone who's very strong technically, who's vested in the process, they're not going to go quit and get a different job because they have all this stock that they want to come to fruition and to make money with. Yeah. I think is fundamental, right? I mean, I think the investors are able to have faith in our company because we have a technical co-founder who's not going anywhere, because the only way he's getting rich is if Triggit succeeds. Yeah. And when we raised our round of funding, and for instance, it's very often when you raise funding, you're going to reset some of the founders' vesting, especially early on, like right now. Ryan's vesting got reset as well. And so our CTO is now not fully vested with his stock, so he's planning on sticking around for a while, right? I mean, he's not leaving. Yeah. And that's very important, because he leaves, we have a problem, because we're a technical company. Yeah. So I think that having technical talent and understanding technical talent is important. But I mean, Ryan is not a business person, right? Our CTO is just not a business person. Right. And he doesn't really want to be a business person. Right. And so for us, that was the team dynamic that worked, right? I do more operations. Zach, our CEO, does kind of more external sales role, and Ryan's our CTO. And I mean, Ryan never goes to a networking event unless there's free food and he wants to. He never has to pick up the phone to call anyone unless he wants to. And he literally just gets to build a product. So for us, that was the role that worked. If you have a technical, the technical founder that has business kind of acumen is very rare, right? The Googles or the Facebooks, very, very rare. If you have that, that's fantastic, but I don't think it's necessary. Though having a technical person that's vested in your company is fundamental, if you're going to be a technical company.
Could you list some of the advantages of gender diversity in a startup, and are there any disadvantages? I know you're the only woman.
I'm the only woman in this team. We're trying. I absolutely would love to have more women in this company. I think I try hard to hire a woman, but we decided, and I agree with, that when we hire, it's the best candidate that we hire and that we offer the job to. It's never going to be, okay, I'm offering you this job because you're a woman, even though you beat out someone. I just don't think it's very necessary. Interestingly, we have, in the office, we have all, 5 men. But out of the office, we have a handful of consultants that are fundamental to our company who are women, and they don't want jobs. Our controller wants to be a consultant. Without her, a lot of things crash. Right. She doesn't want a full-time job. She doesn't want to come into the office. She likes that she works from home. She likes that she does that. The woman that's in charge of our PR and marketing just had a baby and wants to be at home with her baby, but she still works many hours a week for us. So
so they all want some freedom, but they contribute.
Yeah, and so I think that as we grow, we will absolutely bring on a lot more. I mean, interestingly, that we don't have any women in our accounts team right now. That will fundamentally change. At Google, I think 80% of the incoming AdWords account managers are women.
Wow.
And they in part do that to balance out the technical side, which is men. But but we got Mike from Google, and he was like, I was in a class of 15. I was one of the 3 guys.
Wow.
So for us, it's, I don't know. I have no bias towards women, but
no, obviously you don't. I just wondered if you see what the advantages are that women can bring.
I think just diversity in general.
Okay. Is a different way of looking at things.
It's probably the most important thing. We definitely don't have a very diverse team right now. We're all athletes that grew up in the Midwest, pretty much, that are under 30. I think Tony might be over 30. Though we do have a sales guy who's 50 and lives in Florida. But I think like, you know, but it's also hard when you're building a culture. Like, you're obviously attracted to people that are just like you and that are doing the same things as you, and that, you know. So it's, I think it's, you know, on one hand, you definitely don't want to put like, you know, a fire, you know, create a fire in there by adding conflict.
Yes.
So like that's the fear, but I don't think gender has anything to do with that. I think for us, we just haven't had a woman accept our offer yet.
That's been the right person.
But we've put offers out there. So, but we have a lot of people who reject our offers. You know.
Maybe someone will see this interview and
apply
for a job with
you, especially if you're an engineer.
Anyway, thank you so much,
Absolutely.
Susan. I really appreciate your time today.